Well. The big weekend is upon us. 3 gigantic days coming up here, Thursday through Saturday, in which teams are trying to do whatever they can to better their situation, better their roster. The Cincinnati Bengals are no exception to that. They've got an arsenal of picks. They may or may not keep all of them. They may move around or might not, depending. We'll talk about that, and we will unveil our final mock draft. John and I aren't the gigantic mock draft, super often guys. So we kind of try and only do about 2 or 3 per season, per draft season. So we're going to do a final 7-round mock draft. We'll get to that in just a little bit. We've got some news, notes, and rumors to address before we do that. I'm Anthony. He's John. John, what's going on, my man?
We're so close. And we are being bombarded with information that 95% of it is not true, but people will take their money and bet on the Chargers drafting J.J. McCarthy, apparently. Everything is happening right now, and the process never changes, right? It's people running around with chickens with their heads cut off, thinking that everything they hear is gospel, when the only information that comes out is typically by design. But we will figure out which suspicions are true and which are not in, I think, 18 hours or so. So we're so close. Like 36. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, 36. Yeah, we're not. I mean, don't scare me now, man. Oh gosh, we're not that close yet. But we are very close. So we'll get to some stuff to tee up the draft. We'll do our mock draft, and then John and I have a little announcement to make about the show and some things going on with it, and we're pretty excited about that. So we'll save that little morsel for you at the end. But before we get to our mock draft here, let's talk about some news, notes, and rumors with the Cincinnati Bengals. And there's a lot going on that actually isn't necessarily draft-centric with the Bengals. I mean, I guess it affects the draft and what they may or may not do, but a couple of extensions you kind of figured these things were coming. But the Bengals, let's start off with the most important position on the team, that being quarterback. And yes, Joe Burrow is making a fine recovery by all accounts from that wrist injury he suffered last year. And his backup, who played pretty dang well while he was out for 9 games, something like that, came in and played pretty well. Jake Browning, he earned himself a new 2-year contract with the Bengals, and that settles things quite nicely for the team as they go into the draft, not necessarily needing another backup quarterback scrum. And oh, by the way, similar position and familiar face, Logan Woodside, making a return to Cincinnati as well. Who'd have thunk? What do you make of the quarterback quarterback room filling up, John?
Well, for starters, I forgot Logan Woodside existed. That 2018, the end of the 2018 draft class is so forgettable. I don't think people remember who Rod Taylor was. It's like Andrew Brown was another guy. So the fact that he technically signed a second contract with the Bengals is crazy, but he is now the 3rd quarterback, and I think that basically eliminates any possibility of them drafting a quarterback. You could see them, signing a guy after the draft. But Jake Browning is interesting because the Bengals held all the leverage here. He was an exclusive rights free agent, which means that if he didn't accept a vet minimum 1-year deal with the team, he could not play in the NFL this year. And if he had done that, he would have also been an exclusive rights free agent next year, so we would have had to go through the same process again. The Bengals essentially said, nah, you know what? You've done enough. We've seen enough. We'll just buy out the last 2 years of your exclusive rights free agency, and then we'll give him a 2-year deal worth a little bit more than what he would have made if he was just tendered 2 years in a row. So it's probably in the range of like 2 to 2.5 million total over those 2 years. So the Bengals did go above and beyond to reward Browning for what he did at the end of this past season. And I don't view it as like, oh, they extended him so they can trade him or anything like that. I think they just wanted to just get this over with, skip all the rest of what could have been in the next year of dealing with this 2 years in a row. So yeah, they locked him in for 2 years because I think they just see him as the backup behind Joe Burrow now.
Good on the Bengals for rightfully rewarding a player and not just kind of going through the motions there on what they could have done. And that I think you would hope that other players on the roster maybe take notice of that, right? And say, hey, not only good job, Jake Browning, you earned this, but also the fact that, hey, the Bengals could have done the bare minimum here and they did not. They went beyond that and rewarded a player who played well for them last year. That season could have gone into the tank very easily under a different set of circumstances, even with the surrounding talent that Browning had. But Browning stepped up. They changed a little bit of the system, and he ended up playing well, getting some wins, and having the Bengals in it till really the last couple of weeks of the season. So admirable. And if God forbid, I hope we're not talking about yet another Burrow injury or anything like that this next year. If God forbid something like that happens, and if it does happen, hopefully it would be short term only. But he has proven that he can keep a team afloat, right? And so that's a guy you want to keep around. And so the good move by the Bengals. Woodside is definitely interesting. And by the way, when we're going into draft weekend and you are talking about some of those names you mentioned, Andrew Brown, Rod Taylor, we're going, oh, there's that bucket of cold water that comes out of the draft a handful of years later. But Woodside making a return to Cincinnati. And I don't know that there's going to be nearly as much of a backup quarterback competition now with what Browning showed, but they've got some depth there at least for camp and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think at least Logan Woodside has been in and around the NFL since I don't even remember the last time he was with the Bengals. He was probably here for like maybe a year or two, but he was most recently with the Atlanta Falcons. I think he was with the Titans a few years ago too, so he was probably out of the league for a couple years, but then he made kind of a resurgence, and the Bengals, I think, scouted against him in the preseason when they played Atlanta, or maybe they saw him play and like, oh yeah, he's still around. But yeah, third quarterback is the third quarterback. Of course, Jake Browning was technically the third quarterback this time last year, so anything can happen. Right. But yeah, I mean, he's Logan Woodside. Not much more to be said than that.
Yeah, and it goes to show that the Bengals made the right decision between Simeon and Browning too. Ultimately, Luke, you talked about this a little bit, John. Just real quick, Luke Fontova from Facebook says, "I'm surprised Browning agreed to a 2-year deal, knowing he could get starter potential elsewhere." You kind of said the Bengals held the control here, and so it wasn't a true free agency type of situation where he was courted. He would have been, had he been an open free agent, I would assume he would have been courted much heavier than how his situation was currently structured. So that's why the Bengals were able to kind of control that situation and offer him a deal outside of the ERFA situation. But anyway, let's move on, because it is not only draft season, it is rumor season, my friend, and there are some rumors flying around about the Bengals and what they may or may not do in the first round. Believe it or not, the team that almost never trades up, particularly in the first round, there are some rumors, and it was Dan Graziano, and the other name is escaping me
Jeremy
at the moment. Of ESPN, yeah. And Fowler, he's a Steelers guy, but he seems to have a pretty good pulse on Bengals things. He's kind of announced some things on the Bengals over the years. So, two guys you kind of tend to believe have a pulse on some things. The first, I don't know if I heard the one that's being talked about in just a second, but I know that what those two specifically were talking about was that the Bengals were thinking about moving up from 18, likely a small handful of spots, to potentially go after Alabama tackle J.C. Latham. And talented guy, one of the better ones in this class, but some risk involved there, some question marks involved there, because he did not test this spring, leaving questions about, just how athletic is he.
So let's connect all the dots here, because at the beginning of the week, Dave Lapham did his thing, and he called his shot, and he mentioned J.C. Latham as the first guy to watch for, and he kind of grouped him with Amarius Mims. So that, I think, kind of kickstarted everything. Earlier this morning, Wednesday morning, Daniel Jeremiah tweeted out, in his last 5 phone calls, it sounds like everyone is trying to move up for an offensive tackle. And then there was a report from Graziano, and the exact report is, quote, the Bengals at number 18 are also worth watching for a potential trade-up. They like Alabama offensive tackle J.C. Latham a lot and could stand to bolster the line, but they may need to move up to get someone in that tier. Otherwise, watch for Cincinnati to bolster the interior of its defensive line, yada, yada, yada. So I don't know if that means that they are like considering trading up rather than they view Latham high enough to, if he gets in that range, like they could make some calls and put a deal together. It does sound like teams in and around like where the Bengals pick in the first round are seriously considering moving up to take one of these 5 or 6 offensive tackles, and that run on tackles could happen sooner. And if the Bengals do view Latham as highly as maybe Lapham thinks, and obviously Graziano is reporting, then that could be a situation where they feel like they need to get their guy, and if he falls enough, there could be a trade in place. But like you said, it's very rare. I mean, it's been 30 years since the Bengals have traded up in the first round. It's been a while since before Cam Taylor-Britt was traded up, before that they traded up in the first 2 rounds, period. So I think the very specific situation would have to occur where like Latham is maybe one of their last prime targets within somewhat reach, and they're able to make a move. And but even still, like the fact that there's a report like this at all, I think is somewhat notable, because again, trading up in the first round is pretty much a non-starter for the Bengals. So the fact that there are even these potential internal debates happening within the building, and of course being leaked to guys like Graziano, I think is at the very least notable that it is at least possible.
I think we're going to say the same thing, just in a slightly different way. What I'm gathering from this rumor is that the Bengals at 18 are going to see what happens in that top 10, top 12 picks probably. And if there is an earlier run on all these, they probably got, at 18, because of the depth pool of the offensive tackle position in this class, they probably have 5, 6 names where they go, yeah, these are the guys we would consider from that position group at 18. Well, all of a sudden, if there's more movement at that position than previously thought, all of a sudden, some teams other teams are moving up, right? Not teams currently slated there. Other teams are moving up. More tackles fly off the board within that top 10, top 12. The Bengals are going to, which is what I think we've kind of wanted them to do in a lot of instances. They're not going to sit there and go, okay, we're going to wait for, just see what comes to us and pick best available. That is a good sound philosophy a lot of times, but there are other times, if you identify premier players or players that you specifically want, sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone and go get them, right? And so if there is a quicker run on this position group than originally anticipated, that's where I can see the Bengals go, hey, you know what, maybe we'll sacrifice one of the night 2 picks, day 3 picks, whatever, to move up just a couple of spots, that sort of thing. I personally, nothing against the player that we're talking about linking them to. I'm a little more nervous about him than maybe some of the other prospects. And so moving up for him might be a little bit dicey for me. But I mean, if that's who they've identified as one of the top guys in this class, then, I think we all roll with it.
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. For one, like what you just talked about would be a direct lesson from what happened with Frank Ragnow and Billy Price, right? Just having your top target being swooped right in front of you, I think has left a really bad taste in the Bengals' mouths. But also, like the plan A clearly seems to be offensive tackle at 18. I think it's not only just for the fact of getting through this season when Trent Brown potentially goes down, because that is his injury history, but also just the option to solidify that position for years to come when it's just been a revolving door for most of the last decade. I think they view this as an opportunity to just get that right, and Latham happens to be their top guy with a chance of maybe getting there, because I would imagine they would have Joe Alt graded higher, but obviously Alt is not leaving like the top 7, right? So Latham becomes that best somewhat possible scenario. I also think that like Mims is probably pretty close behind him, if not grouped together with him. So I don't know if it's a case of if Mims is maybe the last guy available and it's pick 16 or pick 15, and if there are conversations of trading up for him as well. But I keep going back to the Taylor Britt trade where they traded up 3 spots to land him. Only gave up like a day 3 pick, but they did so because they needed a cornerback extremely bad. They could have picked one at the end of round 1 that year, but they didn't, so they had to settle in round 2, and they traded up for him because they viewed him as the last decent enough option to pick a cornerback that highly. And if they feel the same way, if they don't want to take an offensive tackle, if they don't want to wait into day 2, and there's like that one final tackle that they view worthy of a first round grade and a first round pick, that could be the scenario in which they do that.
Yeah, and it's again. The 2 names you mentioned, Mims and we talked about Latham. I mean, the SEC thing. I mean that's kind of they default back to that. Big programs, SEC programs. They love picking players from those 2 schools specifically, primarily Georgia. So I mean they're. I mean, that's kind of where they maybe default. And it would be interesting to me to see if they did end up having a choice between one or both of the big Pac-12 guys that you and I both like, Fautanu or Fuaga, and then the SEC guys, if they would default to the SEC over the Pac-12 because of the competition and the high level of play of Georgia and Alabama, especially the past couple of years.
Yeah. I think that those 2 are probably their top guys. I think they just view them as natural fits at right tackle, but it's entirely possible that Latham goes like top 10 at this point. Like I think the Titans are very much linked to him. I think the Chargers would like to take him too, maybe if they could trade back or whatnot. Fuaga and Fanu seem very comfortable or seem very comfortably fit in that top 16 range. So I think it is going to, like, they're going to sweat a little bit in terms of like how many tackles are actually going to make it to them. And maybe if there's a team that jumps them from behind. I know the Steelers traded up for Broderick Jones, who was Amarius Mims' teammate last year. They traded up 3 spots for him. They have a history of trading up in the first round. There's just a lot of other variables that we're not really going to know until all the action kind of starts. But it does seem like if they don't take a tackle at 18, it's because something kind of unexpected happened and then they had to pivot.
Yeah, and the Steelers, if you remember, if my memory is serving me correctly, the 2019 draft, they leapfrogged the Bengals to go up and get Devin Bush right in front of them. So, I mean, Pittsburgh would like nothing more than to spoil a Cincinnati party. That's for sure. And this is awesome right here. Matthew on Facebook saying, "Houday from France." That is awesome. International, John. Show is international, my friend. Okay. Any other rumors that you want to start talking about as we are on NFL Draft Eve before we get to our final mock draft?
I think those are the big ones. If we are shouting out internationally, thank you, Andrew Adam from Scotland. I know we got a contingent in the UK, so I appreciate you. We appreciate you tuning in. I believe it's pretty late out over there, at least like maybe 8 or 9 in the evening. So a lot of hype right now. I don't think sleep is an option for a lot of people.
Not an option. That's right. Okay. Well, the last time we did a mock draft, we did a little different than what we have done before. And what we had done before is John and I just kind of made a consensus and agreed upon, different a player, and then we moved on, and then a player, and we moved on. Last time what we did, and we had a little fun with it, was 3 rounds, and we both said, let's each pick a guy, and we have our own mock draft using one of the major simulators. I think we're using a different one this time. I don't really remember which one we used last time, but this one I think is maybe a little bit more computer friendly for us. So we'll share that screen for you, and then John and I will kind of concoct our own classes, draft classes here, and go from there. So this is the simulator. Which one are we using, John?
We're using PFF. I think it's probably the most accurate in terms of like the public board, and like Anthony mentioned, we tried using FanSpeak's Joe Goodberry's board, but my computer was sounding like a jet engine, so we're pivoting a little bit.
Okay, so we are going to do 7, right?
Yep, 7 rounds.
Okay,
starting now.
All right.
Got some
I'm going to
quarterbacks.
briefly go full screen for me so I can see here. Okay. Cooper DeJean, what an interesting player he is, right? Ooh, Latu. Ooh, wow.
Okay, then.
So, I think this is going to be a little bit of a blend of things. Not only what we would do, but also what we think the Bengals would do, and names they've been potentially linked to. So it's kind of a blend of our own personal preference slash what we think they're going to do based on visits, rumors, etc. So Latham did get off the board there at 13 to the Raiders, and then Fautanu went 2 picks earlier, and Fuaga went. So there's your run right there on tap. Real quick, how many went in the Fashanu Alt went at 8, then Fashanu to the Jets at 10. Then you've got Latham at 13, and
Brock Bowers is
Fautanu.
gone. Both cornerbacks are
Yeah,
gone as well. So
yeah,
this is the scenario where both defensive tackles are there, and one tackle that you would deem worthy of the pick is there. So it's probably between Byron Murphy, Johnny Newton, and Marius Mims, with Latu being the wild card.
yeah. Man, Latu would be fun. And um, I don't know, man. I waver on this because I think the pick would probably be Mims at this point. Um, but I he would be what, the 6th tackle. So you're getting essentially the 6th, may or may not be on their board, but the 6th best player at a particular position at the 18th pick. I just waver on that a little bit from a value perspective. But I still think I think in this scenario they would probably go Mims. They would be more apt to take an offensive tackle with a first round pick instead of an interior defensive lineman, and that may wait. So I think I'm going to go based on what I think. I think they would go Mims. I would love Latu, though. That would be a fun pick right there, and a heck of a steal.
It's a 2-horse race. I think Byron Murphy to them is the better value, even though Mims is probably like when the draft starts, that's probably what they envisioned is going to be the likely pick. I think Byron Murphy being here would be more of a surprise for them, and I think out of a lot of the guys who are rated higher on their board than one of the top tackles, I think Byron Murphy's probably one of those guys. So I would lean them taking Murphy here, even with Mims available. I just think like they just see him as better value. But I agree though. Like if Mims is available, there's probably a good chance that Byron Murphy's not. This is just one of those rare scenarios, in my opinion.
Okay, so you're kind of talking me out of my selection here. Because again, I would go Murphy if it was me in that draft room. I would in this scenario over Mims. I still think they just like a lot of the things that
Yeah.
the tools that Mims has. So I just want to clarify. I will go with Mims, but I think that would be more of the Bengals mindset pick over Murphy. I would prefer Murphy, but
Okay.
so you're going to go Murphy?
I would say Murphy, but like for the sake of realism, we can have this going Mims, but with the realization that this would probably be Murphy, I guess. So
Okay,
we'll
so
pick Mims.
which one are you going with? Okay,
We'll pick
so
Mims.
you're in agreement with me. Okay.
Yes. That's gonna upset some people.
Yeah.
So Johnny Newton went, I think, 39th overall in the second round. Is interesting whether or not if he falls enough, because I think the Bengals would have him high on their board to consider in the first round. So that's a question of how far does he have to fall for them to potentially trade up, and trading up seems more likely this year than maybe in years past. But regardless, we did not get the chance to do that. Michael Penix and Bo Nix both went off right beforehand. Newton went 40th, Jalen Polk 39th, Patrick Paul 38th, Lad McConkey 37th, Troy Franklin, Roger Rosengarten, Kingsley Suamatea went 32nd to the Chiefs. So yeah,
Wow.
makes sense. And
Yeah,
available.
so you'd be going down a different deals here. So the best available, some names that I think are really interesting. I think Coleman would be a fun player here. Fisk right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where they go to get their defensive lineman here, or Chris Jenkins. So what are you feeling here? What do you think if they went Mims, they would immediately go defensive tackle this next round?
I think that's the most likely scenario in the actual draft because I don't think that there's going to be a receiver that kind of passes their thresholds and checks their boxes in the second. I think Ricky Pearsall and Roman Wilson, while they're probably going to go in the second round, those guys would be more outliers in terms of just Bengals draft history, specifically with that position this early. So I think defensive tackle is more likely because there's more guys I think that fit that. However, I think Keon Coleman changes that because he was an early breakout guy. He would be someone that they could put in the slot to maximize his skill set, but also has the experience on the outside. So for me, this is between Keon Coleman and maybe one of the best available defensive tackles.
I'm in agreement with you. Maybe we won't be disagreeing on our picks this time around. Coleman really intrigues me. I know the speed isn't, earth shattering, but I think he does a lot of things. I've heard people compare him to a bigger Tyler Boyd. All kinds of different stuff. So I think Coleman does a lot of things that you would want. It's just a matter of, okay, how long do you wait then for interior defensive line if you don't do it here. Now, when we look at the Bengals and their draft history, they seem to like defensive tackles, those hybrid defensive end. Is he going to be an edge guy? Is he going to be an interior guy? One of those developmental players. They seem to like those a lot in the third and fourth rounds, right? It wasn't Andrew Brown I think he was a day 3 guy. Billings and Will Clark and you get the list goes, Zachary Carter, right? The list goes on and on and on. So maybe that's based on history. Maybe that's what they do at that position again.
Yeah, third through fourth round is typically their defensive line sweet spot. I think, again, in the most likely scenarios, the value for defensive tackle matches more with the second round compared to receiver, but because you have someone who checks a lot of their boxes in Keon Coleman here, I think this would be enough for them to pull the trigger. And by the way, just because he kind of looks like T. Higgins, I think like you said, like a bigger, more physical Tyler Boyd replacement is probably the plan with him, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
And they picked Boyd in the second round, right?
Yep.
So I think they do it again here. Gosh, we're not disagreeing, actually. Maybe we'll just have a unified mock draft here. Keon Coleman, the pick. Yeah. Keon Coleman, the pick here. And I like that pick. I think that's a fringe first round guy that, that would come in and help. So let's see here.
Got some receivers that went off the board. Devontae Walker. I saw Javon Baker earlier. I believe Jalen Polk also went. Malachi Corley, Roman Wilson. So I think we made a decent choice with picking a receiver there, and we might have some.
By the way,
tackles.
I see this comment from Skino DeBoss on our YouTube channel. Mims might not even see the field this year. That's going to be the case with probably with a lot of the tackle options this year, unless someone comes in and just lights the world on fire and beats out Trent Brown, which I don't see happening, or it's one of those guard to tackle transitions and they see an immediate Cordell Volson replacement to groom into a right tackle type of situation. So I don't think an offensive tackle, whether that's in the first round, whether it's Mims or not, you might not see a lot of that first round pick playing if it is an offensive tackle this year.
Yeah, it's lazy. They need another starting caliber tackle when they have Trent Brown because unfortunately there's a greater chance that he's going to miss time than if he plays all 17 games. And of course, the last 2 free agent tackles that they've signed at the position did not play in the playoffs because they got injured prior. So I think that's kind of in the back of their minds as well.
Okay. So what do we got here? We're at pick 80, the first of 2 third-round picks. Benson's interesting. So is Irving.
PFF loves the running backs here. Marshawn Lloyd, who is Anthony's guy, Ray Davis, Bucky Irving. I think those guys are a little bit too high. Benson would probably be the running back worth this pick. Cooper Beebe, who is projected to go in the second round for most people, he's available. Ben Sinnott, the tight end from Kansas State, he's also available. And then Michael Hall Jr., who's also maybe a second-round guy, he's available. So they got options here.
So something tells me with another pick forthcoming, what is it? Is it pick 100? What's their
97.
next pick? 97, that's right. Something tells me that one of those 4 or 5, there's like a lot of running backs here. Mm-hmm. So something tells me, and we've done this before, we've played this dice game before and it hasn't worked out, but something tells me that one of those guys that we like, and there are a handful of them right there, will be there for the next pick. We still have not shored up defensive line, and I'm not seeing a lot here. And I still think Sweat is a guy that will probably be able to be had later.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by Ben Sinnott and maybe Michael Hall. I think Michael Hall Jr. intrigues me a little
Yeah.
bit. I don't know if the value is there though.
I think it is. I think he's probably going to go late second. I think if he's here at 80, that's probably a value. And again, like people are going to look at nose tackle first for the Bengals, but I think if they draft 2 defensive tackles, the first one's going to be more of an all-around, maybe pass rushing specialist or just a 3 technique in general, and that's definitely who Michael Hall is. So I would probably lean towards Michael Hall here, personally.
Okay. You're talking me into it. I mean, I you know, I thought we were going to go different avenues here and make it interesting, but I mean, it's really kind of hard to debate it. Really, Ben Sinnott or Sinnott up there is someone that's kind of sticking out to me. But the Bengals and this coaching staff have just not invested high picks in that position, so it's hard for me to say they're going to pull the trigger there. Yeah, I'm gonna go with you here. I'll go Michael Hall, and I'm gonna roll the dice to see which running back and then is still there, and if Ben Sinnott is there.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. It's not much of a war room. It's kind of like an armistice room at the moment. Looks like some running backs went off the board.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Yeah, Trey Benson went right afterwards.
Yeah. So who do we have here? Oh man, we lost a lot of them.
Cooper Beebe. You still got Ben Sinnott, and you would just have to drop down a tier for running back a little bit. But I think Beebe and I think either Kansas State guy really sticks out to me at this point.
Where are we at with corner?
That's a good question.
That's left. Because I that is always just a position they put a high value on. So, is there anyone kind of
corner is interesting because they've either taken them in the first 2 rounds or they wait until very late in day 3. There's not a lot of like mid-round guys that they've taken. Like Darius Phillips is the last one in that general range. So it almost feels like
5, right?
Yeah, it almost feels like they'd rather take a real dude there or just maybe get lucky very late. So I don't know if like a 3rd or 4th round corner is really on the table for them.
Okay. I'm tempted to go Ben Sinnott. Is it Sinnott? Sinnott? That's kind of where my head's at there. I think he can be a guy that can round out that group right away. And by the way, Mitchell Wilcox just signed. He announced on his Twitter account just signed with the Patriots. So he's not coming back. Maybe that was already planned for, but I guess in a way there is a spot that was filled last year that is open at this point.
Yeah.
They have been linked to Eric All also, haven't they? They had a visit with him.
Yeah, and I think All could go in the 3rd round, but he's probably more likely to go on day 3. Either Sinnott or BB would be tremendous value here. The only reason why I would lean Sinnott is because I don't know if they want to draft someone to start over Cordell Volson. I think they would rather wait to find someone that can back up all 3 spots, which obviously BB could, but I think BB would straight up beat Volson in a one-on-one competition for left guard, which I think is what I would do personally. I don't know if it's what they have in mind, unless a situation like this occurs where BB is just there staring at them in the face like later than when they expect. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment.
Yeah, and Josh Holland echoes your sentiment there.
We can't go wrong here. We cannot go wrong. We're just trying to
Do
think
we
about what is
do
more
what we think
likely.
that? Yeah, yeah, because you got your mindset, which I think is accurate. Where, man, are we going to draft Volson's replacement right away, and that's that, or are they going to go draft a player in which they've only used a night two pick once in the Zach Taylor era, and just have foregone drafting it the last couple of classes, right?
Right.
So it's like, man, do you break custom there as well?
I think the tiebreaker is just taking the better player, and I think it's probably BB. I think it could be a situation where it's like Jordan Battle, where it's like there's no way this guy's still going to be there, and they just took a player at a position that they weren't going to expect to take just because like there's no way they can pass him up at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the more wise pick there. Yeah.
All right, Cooper BB it is. We're killing this thing,
Now,
by the way.
not the sexiest of classes with the position groups. I mean, you're talking about a tackle, interior defensive lineman, and an interior offensive lineman within your first four picks. But there is a lot of good value there. This is where I think Estime is a really good back. You picked Braylon Allen, I think, before, the Wisconsin back.
Yep.
We already got the wide receiver. I see the couple of USC guys there that I think would be good value because we're in the fourth round now. So, and then of course you got Sweat sitting there as well. I just don't see Sweat being on the Bengals board, or high on it. I just don't. But this is about where he should go, I think, if not maybe a tiny bit earlier. But this is about where he will probably go. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I think fourth round's too early for Sweat. We did ask someone the tight ends available. Jaheim Bell is probably he seems better than being projected to go in the fifth round. So he's high on my board at this juncture, but there's a possibility that you can just get him later. So it's probably the best idea to wait for a tight end here. The guy is sticking out like a sore thumb, though, is Estime, like you said. Is one of the more likely running backs to be drafted by the Bengals, according to the data. They haven't taken one yet. I think Estime he stands out here.
Yeah, I do want to mention Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State, too. I think he's a pretty well-rounded guy, too, that I know Daniel Jeremiah liked him. He was one of the guys he said I like more than other people do. So that is a guy that interests me. But I think here, especially with the many moves, or the big shift, I guess I should say, at the running back position this year, adding a little bit more to that stable. He's one of the guys that I think if you are going to look in that round 3 to 5 range, he's got to be at the top of the list within that range. So getting him in the middle of round 4, I think, is a pretty good deal. That's probably where I would lean.
Okay, so if we're between these two positions, which is more likely that the Bengals would take, I guess, because
running back
again,
probably.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I mean, I the only reason I say that, and it's not a thing against Theo Johnson, because I think I think he could be a good player for the Bengals too, but they just have not. They haven't put a premium on that position. They just have not, right. Especially in the draft. They've done these 1-year rental veteran guys, and that's what they've preferred to do. So, I mean, I'm looking at it, and then, of course, the big shift from Mixon, where you pretty much knew at least stat line what you were going to get out of him every year, to now Zach Moss and a running back by committee type of approach a bit. That's where I think, you now have Chase Brown, you would have Estime, and you would have Moss. Travion Williams in the mix there as well. I think that makes for a pretty decent group.
I think we should just go with Estime, just because there's a larger contingent of tight ends still available, and there's a possibility that Theo Johnson could be there in the fifth. So let's take Estime. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
By the way, Dusty, who runs Bengals Army and that YouTube channel, I hopped on that show for a little bit last night. Go check that out. Mon was on it as well. Guy who does, he's a good Bengals podcaster. Dusty started that show about a year ago, and go check that out and the other episodes that he has out there as well. So thanks for saying hey there, Dusty. All right, let's keep
Theo
this
went
moving.
4 picks ahead of us.
Oh man. Oh man. Okay. Okay. Um,
So I'm looking at corners and tight ends here is probably the next positions of need. And I guess we'll throw in defensive tackle.
yeah, I think your Bell pick is probably where we go here.
Yeah.
Cam Hart's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Dallin Holker's
One,
interesting. Newton's kind of interesting.
you can probably still find a tight end a little bit later. Dwight McLaughlin is someone they've been linked to. They really loved him at his pro day. Fits the production thresholds. But yeah, like Jaheim Bell is one of the few tight ends in this class that actually has a chance of being better than where he's drafted. And again, if he's there in the 5th round, the Bengals pass him up. That'd be probably a whiff on their part.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably where I would go. I don't know about you.
Yep. Let's keep it moving.
Okay. So we haven't disagreed really. Oh gosh, I thought we were going to do our own separate picks, but
when the board is falling to you as such, I think you just gotta not fight it and just let it happen.
hard to debate it. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's
flying
see.
through this though.
Yeah, moving through.
This is where there's a big gap, I think, between their picks a little bit.
Yeah, Isaac Garendo is an interesting player. I know we just took Estime, but he's kind of interesting. And then there's McLaughlin right there. So I think that's probably where they go. And I don't know that he goes this late, honestly, but
yeah, I think he's within that 5th to 6th round range, and maybe based off of the positional value aspect, he probably goes a little bit earlier. I think the main knock on him though is that he's not the best athlete, which may hinder his chances of being ended up with the Bengals since they put a premium on speed there. But it's pretty likely that they draft a cornerback this year, and yeah, McLaughlin has been linked to them, so I'm okay with this pick if you are.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's do it. We go 3 more picks then. 1 more in the 6th round, 2 more in the 7th.
So the only interior defensive lineman we have taken was Michael Hall, correct?
Correct. We can look at some of those now. Jawan Briggs, Christian Boyd, whereas Evan Anderson, all 3, Marcus and Justin Rogers have all been linked to them as potential late round options. So this is a matter of.
Do you see them going here again?
I do. I think that they'll go 2 defensive tackles, and again, I think they'll see the value of a nose later compared to more of the pass rushing guy earlier, which is what we ended up doing. It's just a matter of Christian Boyd is older and has played against lesser competition. They've met with it. They've met with Evan Anderson twice at least in this process. Jawan Briggs is a Cincinnati guy who talked with Mike Brown at the local pro days, so those are probably the 3 guys I think they would consider here.
Yeah. I would say I would default to Rogers because of the SEC thing, but the 2 visits with Anderson speaks volumes. I still think he'll be available maybe even later than this, though. I don't know. Any linebacker picks or I'm looking at some of this stuff here. They haven't really talked much. We haven't talked much about that.
None that they've been connected with. I know Jalen Ford for some people is more of a mid-round guy. I think PFF is just a lot lower on him. But yeah, I think a linebacker would make sense. Because other than that, I mean, we've hit most of the positions.
I don't think they double dip at wide receiver because they did that last year. Then we've already grabbed another one this year. So I just don't see that happening. I don't know that they double dip at running back given what they've done there as well. I don't think they're going to go safety. Unless Tyson Anderson is, I don't know, fighting for a job. Um,
At this
yeah, I
point,
mean,
it's more about like it's less about the position and it's more about which players do you have draftable grades on left when you're in the 200s, I
and
guess.
Ford would
So
be that. Yeah.
yeah, I would probably lean forward here and just see which nose is left in the seventh, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
Jalen Ford finished the sixth round, and again two more picks in the seventh round to go. And yes, Josh Allen, I think punter will be on our minds with our last pick.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it looks like all of our
So
options are still
Briggs is
there.
there. Yeah. Yep. So I think we just take one of the ones that there's three there that we're talking about, right? Um,
Yes. Justin Rogers ended up getting drafted as well, so he's not one of the options. I
oh,
think
yep.
I think there's just been more linked to Anderson. He's the bigger body. He was more productive. He might have the better chance of maybe being undrafted compared to. I think they're both
I know.
probably
Yeah.
similarly graded. If there was a tiebreaker here, I would just go with the player who's more linked to the Bengals in this case, and that's probably Anderson.
Okay. I'm with you. All right. Now we're looking punter. Is that
Might as well see who's on the board. A kicker? No. Frank Gore Jr.
oh,
Bub
Frank Gore
Means.
Jr. Frank Gore Jr. That's hard value to pass up right there. So
There are
kicker.
two
So
punters to select from. I don't know much about either of them.
yeah. I don't know much about either of them either. I think.
I know McNamara is. If
I'm
he's
more
not
familiar with that name.
if he's not the best in terms of net average, he's near the top of like draftable punters, and that's probably what they would look at compared to Brad Robbins. But again, I don't know if they pick a punter again just because of the clear mistake it was last year. But I mean, this is the final pick, so
Yeah. Yeah.
let's just go ahead and do it.
I would say either that. Okay. Yeah. I was going to say that or Frank Gore Jr.
Just for the ha-has. Let's see if he actually goes. Oh yeah, he went to the Texans. 247. Give us a grade, PFF.
We tried to go different with our drafts, but we didn't. So round one was Amarius Mims. There you go, right there. Yeah.
Round two was Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. Round three was Michael Hall, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. Round three was Cooper Beebe, the guard out of Kansas State. Round four, Audric Estime, the running back out of Notre Dame. Round five, Jaheim Bell, the tight end out of Florida State. Round six, Dwight McGlothern, the cornerback out of Arkansas. Round six, Jalen Ford, the linebacker out of Texas. Round seven, Evan Anderson, the defensive tackle out of Florida Atlantic. And finally, Austin McNamara, the punter out of Texas Tech.
I like it. That's a good haul, man. And it's well spread across the. They didn't really like our picks, though. It seems like
They never like anyone's mocks. It's ridiculous.
So yeah, you got yourself a tight end, got yourself a running back, got yourself some future and maybe even current offensive line help, and then of course wide receiver help. We waited on corner, which I don't know that the Bengals will do, but I think they also potentially we drafted some guys that were linked to him, right? You talked about McGlothern and Anderson, and I mean they've been all about Mims, and so yeah, I mean Estime is probably one of the guys if they do go running back that he'd be on their list. So yeah, kind of went all over the place. A little bit of a blend of what you and I would do mixed with what the Bengals would probably do and have done historically, and then who they've been visiting with. So a little bit of everything there.
The only prospects that I don't think they've had any contact with are Michael Hall, Cooper Beebe, and Jaheim Bell and Jalen Ford, and obviously the punter. Again, I think there are scenarios where prospects that you don't expect to draft just kind of fall in your lap, and you might as well just go with it. And I'm sure they have some surface level knowledge of who they are. But yeah, it's definitely safer to just look at their visits, look at who they've talked to, look at who's participated in the Senior Bowl as well. Like those are typically the green flags that you want to look for when the actual draft is happening. But Mims for sure, Estime for sure, McLaughlin for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty solid. Oddly enough, I would say that one of my least favorite picks is actually in the first round, but I still think that the Bengals would probably go that route, and I still think he's got high potential, as we've noted. Go back and check out a few episodes ago. We did an extensive profile on Mims, and we did a write-up on him with that associated media on cincyjungle.com. So go check that out. Okay, well, let's drop the mic and get on out of here. And I don't want to steal your thunder, John Sheeran, but I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of make an announcement. Number one, you probably are seeing, and I don't know who did this, but the background, usually the wallpaper we have behind us, usually has Orange and Black Insider and Cincy Jungle and all that kind of stuff. So if you are listening or have been listening to the audio side of things, you probably noticed that we haven't been uploading the last couple of shows and last few shows of all of the shows on our podcast channel. That's because we are moving the audio side of things to another platform, and one that we are very excited about because we've had a previous relationship with them in a different way. So we are now going to be joining at this show, the Orange and Black Insider, talking football with Bengal Jim and friends. I don't want to steal their thunder too. They'll probably make an announcement. Coach Speak and Chalk Talk with Matt Minnick, and 3 and Out with Jason and Kevin. All of our shows are now being moved over to the Believe network. And so we are going to be doing a lot of audio stuff with them. We've already been doing a lot of stuff with that network. So it's really cool to be involved there. And John, the really cool thing too, thanks to great people like Jason Markham and others, is that we are still going to be putting our shows and all of our content, and I'm still going to be writing at Cincy Jungle. Nothing's changing with John at A to Z, at least that I know of. And so he's wearing the hat, right? I mean, so I think. But John, the cool thing here is that we'll get to put our shows still on Cincy Jungle. We're still going to be affiliated with SB Nation. We've just got a really, really cool opportunity to move our audio side of our podcast over. Now, the thing with that, and we really want your help with that, is that this is going to be a new feed and a new channel in which to subscribe. It's going to be called, it's a part of the Believe network. We're thinking it's going to be called Believe in Cincy, kind of playing off the old name a little bit there. And so all of the shows will be there, but you're going to need to resubscribe. The old RSS feed was part of SB Nation that shot it out to all of those platforms. We'll still get it out to all of those audio platforms, but you're going to need to resubscribe. And when we have the link for that, we will have you do that. We'll put it in the description of the videos and put it on Cincy Jungle and all that kind of stuff for you to resubscribe. But we're excited about it. I know the other guys are excited about it, and we wanted to make this announcement and get this thing going right before the draft.
It's the perfect transition, you know. We've had so many great guests from the Believe networks. We've already had a really good existing relationship with them. I've got experience with the Believe network. That's where the puppets. That's where that podcast has lived for the past year or 2 years now. So it made total sense to kind of do this. They're one of the best podcast networks out there, and their reach is really wide. And yeah, we'll make it as easy as possible for you guys to find us on the audio side of things. Obviously, the YouTube channel isn't going anywhere. If that's your preferred method of watching us, that will always be here under the same name and everything like that. But no, it's cool having all of our shows under one umbrella, united and moving together to a place that hopefully is a lot better for us. So we're all very excited about it.
Yeah, video side of things aren't changing. Individual YouTube channels. Jim's got his channel. We've got our channel with Jason and Kevin doing some shows on our channel as well. I don't know if Matt has his own channel or not, but um, the setup's going to be largely the same. You know, a couple of us, Jim's show and our show, do the live recording and on the video, and we're going to, you know, spit it to, we're still going to use the Cincy Jungle Facebook page if that's how you like to watch it. We're still going to do it on YouTube. We're still going to do it on Twitter. This is only affecting the audio side of things. So if you like the audio side of things, we're just transitioning and moving to a really good, like I said, a really good opportunity for us. And we're looking forward to that. So we want to let you guys know, and we will be getting that link to how to resubscribe to the channels as well. So anything else that I missed on that, John? I think look for Believe in Cincy. There's already a great show with Solomon Wilcott's Believe in Bengals. And so we're just kind of going along with it, and we're looking forward to what's to come.
And if you're searching that, it's BLEAV, not the traditional spelling of believe, but believe. Yeah. Believe in Cincy, if you will.
Yep. So that's gonna do it for me. I don't know if you got an additional thing, John, that you want to drop the mic with, but that was my mic drop.
I think the last thing to do is maybe call our shots and predict who they're going to pick in the first round. So I'm going to go with Mims. I think it would take something historic for one of those tackles to not be there. And I think he's got the best chance of lasting that long, barring a team like Pittsburgh trading up for him. There's just a greater chance it's going to be a tackle than not. If it's not a tackle, that's when you could see the pivot to Johnny Newton or potentially one of these cornerbacks. But I find it hard to believe that 6 tackles are going to go off the board before them. And like I said, I think Mims has the best chance of lasting. We know that they're high on him. That we know that they've been connected with him for a long time. I've had this plague planted since about a month ago in March, so I would be remiss if I went off of it now. So I'm going to go Marius Mims.
Okay. I'm inclined to say Fautanu, just because the guy's versatile. I don't, who knows? He could be there. He might go earlier than expected, but I think Fautanu makes a lot of sense for the Bengals versatility wise. And I think, they like that out of their offensive linemen. And again, you go back to their track record, they are way more prone to draft an offensive tackle over a defensive tackle. There's been very few defensive tackles that they have drafted. I think, Dan Wilkinson, obviously, right? That was 31 years ago, right? That was one. They had first round interest in Cedric Ellis, if you remember that name years ago, as well as Rankins, who is now with them. But other than that, the pickings are pretty slim in terms of who they've drafted as a defensive tackle in the first round. So I think it's going to be an offensive lineman, offensive tackle, and I think Mims could very well be the pick. But I'm going to go a little, since we were so united in the mock, I'm going to go with Fautanu as the guy.
I mean, it's the last year of the Pac-12. You have to go out strong, right?
That's right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we appreciate all the support here. And we will bring you all kinds of different stuff this weekend too. So stay tuned for that, and we will bring you more to it. So take care, and we will talk soon.